We sit uneasy these days, and for good reason. There's a pandemic, there's considerable social unrest, and there's economic hardship for many people. There are natural disasters like the West Coast fires and hurricanes in the South. And then there's an election on the horizon. That's a lot to handle. And it challenges our ability to think clearly. I want to offer some reflections directed mainly to Catholic people, but also, I believe, reflections that may be relevant to other persons of goodwill. These reflections center on one piece in that complex mix of things, the upcoming election. Both political parties are targeting the so-called Catholic vote, as if Catholics were monolithic in their political behavior. What strikes me very forcefully, however, are the commentators on all sides who absolutely insist that Catholics, because of certain Catholic values, must vote one way or another. For Catholics, the hot-button issues and the policies attached to them are well known. Respect for life from conception to natural death, religious liberty, the protection of family life and traditional marriage, racial justice, the lethal degradation of the environment, the growing economic inequality with patterns of exclusion from economic opportunities, safety and security on our streets and in our neighborhoods, immigration, healthcare, and national security. There are convictions and values deeply embedded in the Catholic faith tradition that provide a compass for navigating these issues. This comes together in what we call Catholic social teaching. It is not a political program. In fact, Pope St. John Paul II expressed it very clearly. He said, "The Church respects the legitimate autonomy of the democratic order and is not entitled to express preferences for this or that institutional or constitutional solution." In other words, specific policy and legislative options lie outside the Church's competence. However, the Church is, in the words of Pope St. Paul VI, an expert in humanity. That is, knowledgeable about what leads us to full and authentic living as human beings. That expertise in humanity, expressed in convictions and values, can and ought to be brought to bear on our social and political life together. Again, that expertise is an affirmation of the respect due to all human persons because of their dignity as created in the image and likeness of God. And so we also come to know that we are all connected to each other and share a common destiny. So let's return to the question of voting. And let's begin with a very sobering assessment. No party, no candidate, no platform is in complete sync with the values and convictions of the Catholic faith tradition. Look, for example, at how Pope Francis has framed our deeply held respect for life. He writes, "Our defense of the innocent unborn needs to be clear, firm, and passionate, for at stake is the dignity of a human life, which is always sacred. Equally sacred, however, are the lives of the poor, those already born, the destitute, the abandoned, and the underprivileged, the vulnerable, infirm, and elderly exposed to covert euthanasia, the victims of human trafficking, new forms of slavery, and every form of rejection." That's Pope Francis. No party, no platform, no candidate pulls all of that together. In some instances, they seem diametrically opposed to Catholic values. So, if none of the parties and candidates support and sustain all of the values that we embrace as central to our life together, what do we do in the matter of voting? Do we sit out the electoral process? Do we hold our nose and just go with a gut feeling or a hunch? For Catholics, sitting out the election is not an option. The Catechism of the Catholic Church has this to say: it is the duty of citizens to contribute along with the civil authorities to the good of society in a spirit of truth, justice, solidarity, and freedom. Submission to authority and co-responsibility for the common good make it morally obligatory to pay taxes, to exercise the right to vote, and to defend one's country. That's in the Catechism numbers 2239 and 2240. So there's a moral obligation to vote, unless, of course, we are legitimately impeded. Where does that leave us in a set of circumstances that are far less than ideal? What is a Catholic voter to do? And let me add that it is not just Catholic voters, but others as well, who share our values and aspirations for a life together rooted in truth, justice, solidarity, and freedom. What do we do? First, we need to review and reclaim our understanding of basic values and convictions, rooted in faith and reason. This may mean that we need to review what we hold about the dignity and value of human life, about our life together, and about the created world that is entrusted to us. And this may lead us to challenge within ourselves things that have seeped into our lives because of the culture we live in. For example, we may recognize some ways that we have been co-opted by an aggressive individualism that enthrones autonomy over and above solidarity, that sense of connection and being in life together. We need to know what we value. With that renewed understanding of what matters or ought to matter to us, we can consider the choices, candidates, and policies that are before us. We already know that none of them will fully match our values and, in some instances, be quite contrary to what we value. At that point, we need to consider what choice could possibly lead to less harm and a more positive outcome. I mean, that we need to try again as best as we can to determine where will there be more give, so that in the future it might be possible to have a closer alignment with our convictions and values. There is no surefire formula for making this determination, and frankly, we need to pray over this, asking God for the gifts of wisdom and prudence, the ability to make the best practical judgment possible. Once we have voted, we also need to recognize that our obligation as citizens isn't finished. The frenzy that often accompanies campaigning and the electoral process in our country suggests that once citizens have voted, they are done with the process, and now everything is in the hands of elected officials. That is far from the truth. Voting is one component of a much larger process of civic engagement that obliges all citizens. in a special way, when we have felt constrained by the limited choices offered to us to select someone who embraces values that contradict our own, we need to follow up. We need to work for change by offering a voice and making sure that office holders are held accountable. This is part of the moral obligation of citizens to assume responsibility and engage in participation in a democratic society. In fact, Pope St. John Paul II addressed these realities when he wrote, "The Church values the democratic system inasmuch as it ensures the participation of citizens in making political choices, guarantees to the governed the possibility of both electing and holding accountable those who govern them, and of replacing them through peaceful means when appropriate." When He gave us life and each other in this world, the Lord entrusted us with great responsibility. We are called to be good stewards of the social and political order that enables us to prepare a way in justice, truth, and peace for the coming of His kingdom. As citizens, we exercise that stewardship when we vote, when we participate in the democratic process, and when we bring our values and convictions to shape our society.